Kia ora team, Noel Willoff here. Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. But there's one important thing I want to say before you watch this video. I've noticed that over 91% of you who watch our content on YouTube do not subscribe to the podcast. My promise to you is if you subscribe to the podcast, I'll continue to get more of the guests on that you love and make sure that this conversation and this podcast grows to new levels. So please hit that subscribe button. Secondly, a massive shout out to our official sponsor of the podcast, Moana Road. If you want to save some cash and get some of their awesome gears, head to their website and plug in BTS20 and you'll get 20% off all of their products. Save some cash, support the podcast. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. Kia ora, Jase. Welcome to the podcast.
Kia ora, brother. Thanks for having me.
How you doing? How's your week been?
Pretty epic. Lots of things. Kaupapa mai, kaupapa atu, we say in Te Ao Māori. Lots of kaupapa going on, but this weekend's been chilled. So, yeah, thanks for having me on.
Super stoked we could make this happen. And I think there's so much within your story and your mahi, particularly around mental health, that I'm really keen to dive into with you. So sure. I thought we could maybe start around like the beginning of your upbringing.
Good place to start.
Yeah, good place to start, the natural place to start. And you were born in Whanganui. Never knew your mother and your father left when you were young, so you were raised by your Nan and your Koro.
Aye.
When you were, I guess, being raised by your elders, how did that sort of affect you as a young man, as a young kid? And like, what was that story you would tell yourself sort of growing up?
I had a blessed upbringing, bro. I was brought up with my little brother. Similar to you, I believe. My dad was 16 when he had me, 18 when he had my younger brother. And later on in life, we actually found out that we had another brother, an older brother. So he was 14 when he had him. And then he was whangaid, my older brother, out to other family members who couldn't have pepe back then. So I felt really blessed to be able to be brought up by Nan and Koro. They didn't have much money. They just raised their own 6 kids. My Nan was the eldest daughter of 16 brothers and sisters. And so she left school at 11 to help her mum bring up all of her siblings. So I feel blessed because Nan brought up 3 generations of kids, her brothers and sisters, her own 6 kids, and then us. So she was exhausted by the time she got to us, really. And it's only in reflection that I realised how strict they were. But that strictness gave me and my brother discipline. They gave us things like deeply respectful. We were taught how to respect our elders. I mean, I think that's something in all cultures. But, you know, we'd go and deliver kai to people, you know, neighbours or elders who needed some kai. So I felt really, blessed. I speak about it like that, even though our upbringing was really, really modest and humble and not much money. It was filled with aroha. Like I put 2 hands on my heart when I think about my upbringing. Flip side of that, while I was being brought up, I had an uncle who had schizophrenia and I saw mental illness from a very young age, and it became normal for me and my little brother to visit him in the weekends, either in a mental health institution or jail. I just thought that was normal until I was older and I was like, I actually was really sick. He was a real rat bag. He was in trouble with the law all the time, but he was my favourite uncle. I'm not supposed to say that about my uncles and aunts, but he was my favourite, and he was the first person to commit suicide in my life, to take his life. He's died by suicide. So right from a young age, mental health, you spoke about that in the intro, has been really on my radar. You know?
So talking about, I guess, the sort of strictness of your Nan and your Koro, what did that look like in reality? Was there anything, like any hard rules you had to live by?
Bro, we weren't allowed to watch TV until we did the dishes, and I just remember growing up until I was about I don't know, 13, 14, and my little brother and I would fight around who was going to wash the dishes, who was going to dry, and then that would sometimes turn into fights, and then we weren't allowed to watch TV that night. That's how strict it was. When I started doing gymnastics and competing in gymnastics and getting good at it, my koro would enforce a rule that, like, I couldn't go. I remember one day there was this move I couldn't get at gymnastics. He built gymnastics equipment at home for me. He was a carpenter on the railways, and he built this high bar, and there was this thing I couldn't do. He made me practice over and over, and we couldn't go to the movies. My little brother wasn't allowed to go either unless I nailed this move.
Wow.
And I didn't. So we didn't get to go to the movies. Also, Ted made me sit in the split. Not make me. I don't want to make it sound like that. Well, he'll strongly encourage me to do the splits and sit in the splits whilst watching TV to improve my flexibility. Would get up at 5 a.m. to go swimming, you know. So that level of strictness and discipline, that's why I felt blessed, because that made me become really good at things. And one of the strengths I feel I have is being a hard worker. And that came from him and the discipline. And I remember one of my friends going, "Oh, was your koro in the army?" Because it felt like to them looking from the outside in, like a military upbringing.
Yeah, true. Militant.
Yes.
And is it that, because I also had a Saints basketballer, the bro Mans, on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And he had a very similar, in essence, father growing up who just pushed him really hard to be the athlete that he is today. Same thing, like made him sort of run to training after school, so he'd get there on time, like run sort of 6K there and back. Make sure he'd get enough, like shoot enough hoops before leaving practice, or else they wouldn't leave, and there'd be like a crazy southerly shooting a hoop, you know, outdoors, have to get like 100 shots in, sort of thing. And I think there's something there where like that sort of discipline is really good. And then at the time, I guess for a lot of young people, it can also feel like hell at the same time. It's like, why are you making me do this? And I think there's a careful balance when there might be like a bit too much, and it becomes maybe a bit toxic. But
yeah, kia ora.
How did you interpret that as a young fella?
Kia ora.
At that age, did you see that your koro was making you do this for you to live up to your potential, or did it feel like it was unfair, it was too much? Like, why are you making me work so hard?
Yeah, I can answer that by saying I would watch kids go to, you know, birthday parties and stuff, and I'd be traveling, going to gymnastics competitions, or I got really good at springboard diving, and so I feel like I missed out on some things that other kids were doing. And now at the time I was like, oh gosh, I wish I could just be a kid, really. So sometimes I felt a little bit of disdain towards koro making us be so, you know, regimented in our training for things. But in looking back, they became lifelong skills, near transferable skills, like working hard. You can transfer to anything you do in your life. And at my 40th birthday, 11 years ago, one of my friends who came over from New Zealand to Sydney and hadn't seen me for a few years said to me, "What are you good at now?" And that, to also answer your question, is if it becomes a thing that you have to be excellent at everything, I became really good at lots of things, it turns into toxic fuel. It becomes like, really, 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 if I be really honest, all I ever wanted was my dad, who was missing when I was young, and my Nan and Koro were his parents, was for my dad to say, "I love you and I'm proud of you." Yeah. And that fueled me a lot to be good at things, to represent New Zealand in 3 sports and become excellent at lots of things. And I used the skills that my koro was encouraging me to pick up, you know, discipline and hard work. And as I grew older, it became a bit toxic, and I burnt out. I've been burnt out twice in my life. I've hit rock bottom with my mental health, which is why I'm also passionate about it, because I've lived that. Yeah, there's a lot there. So when I talk about childhood trauma, I talk about the dad missing and the mum that I never met and dad going on to have another family and not take me and my little brother with him.
Something that Jahan Castaneda said, who's a journalist and it's done with great mahi in the mental health space. He reinforced that like there's always a narrative that you tell yourself every morning when you wake up in your head, and that narrative you can begin to believe if it becomes really negative.
Self-belief.
I'm interested, around that sort of self-belief and that narrative of young Jase who didn't have a connection to his mother or really to his father. What was that narrative that you were telling yourself as a young boy?
Oof. Kia ora. Brings up emotion because it's still here as a 51-year-old adult. I can remember distinctly where this started, and it was, there's a picture of me and my little brother at the marae in Whangai, where we're from, about 10 minutes out of Whanganui. And it's a photo of us at a tangi, and I'm smiling. But then about 10 minutes later, I was crying because I saw my dad for the first time since I was 2, so 4-year gap. And he'd come to that tangi, but with a new family. My stepbrother, my stepsister, and my stepmum had just given birth to a half-sister. And when he left without me and my little brother. Now, what does it do to a little kid when you're trying to work out, I thought you were my dad, and, you know, what have I done? What have we done? Did we do something wrong? And the belief that I had at that time was like, oh gosh, me and my brother are not worthy, we're unlovable, we're not good enough. And it brings up emotion because I was just thinking about my little brother today, driving here. And as adults, if we don't tend to that mamai as a child, it can eat you up, turn into poison and eat you up. From the inside out, it's what happened to my little brother. And I don't know if we were going to go there, but my little brother passed away, and I know you're a dad, so the saddest thing about him passing away was that I didn't heal the relationship with our dad, and he left behind 8 kids. That is the most heartbreaking thing to me, that these kids, do you see the cycle is repeating? Our dad wasn't there for us. Now literally he's not there for his kids. So everything I do these days is to make sure that our young people have some tools to be able to heal, deal to, navigate through that tough stuff when they're young, so that they can be around, especially for their kids.
It's powerful, brother.
Didn't know that was going to go there this morning.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, and I guess from looking at your story, bro, and this is what will be really cool getting into this corridor with you, is I feel like everything that you have sort of achieved and sort of set up, all of these foundations in your life that you're doing today, is really in reflection to like that boy growing up in Whanganui. Like you've tried to create like solutions to what you would have needed when you were like a young man.
100%. I think that's what makes me so emotional is I wish that I had the things that I now teach. I think that's why I'm so passionate about teaching them and sharing them. Because I know if my brother had some tools that I've learned along the way and that helped me heal as an adult, still healing, he'd be here.
Yeah. And there's that saying that goes like, it takes like one person in like a family to like change the course of that family. You know what I mean? It usually takes like one individual to really stop those, like the intergenerational way that, family sort of culture has been happening. And yeah, it's sounding like from your story, like a lot of people probably would have just accepted like, okay, this is who I'm going to be. Like if I'm ever going to be a parent or as a friend, like I might follow those same behaviors that my father did, or those people close to you. But yeah, I strongly believe it does take that one individual to sort of step up, and instead of going left, they go right, and end up to where you are today. Do you sort of resonate with that a little bit?
100%. I want to break this cycle, and and I might not ever see the hua or the fruits of it when I'm alive. But if it means that our generations, and my whānau and my hapu and my iwi have some tools to be able to navigate their way through tough stuff, and I'm not here to see it, bro, I'm all good with that.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm here, I feel like truly, with all the things that I've done in my life, I feel like I've been put here by my tupuna to go through the hard shit, because I needed to do that myself and experience. To find some ways to heal. My nan said to me when she was alive, she said, boy, if you find something that heals you, you share it. And so, for 32 years I've been sharing well-being in some way, shape or form. And really I feel like now, especially with our rangatahi that we work with and our kaupapa, that really is the thing that I've been put here to do.
Purpose.
100% purpose.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess also being brought up by your Nan and Koro, did that make you like feel older than you actually were at that age?
Yeah, 100%. We'd be carted around to whānau events, and I remember one of my best mates was Mrs. Shanley growing up until I had, made mates playing sports and doing sports. Yeah. And she was this 70-year-old woman who would like be in her garden. I'd go help her. If I wasn't helping Nan in the garden, I'd go help her in the garden. Mrs. Shanley, she told me all these stories about how she was brought up, and she was part Māori, and so she didn't have much money, and how they'd warm their feet. I don't know if you've heard this, but she'd have to walk to school in the country, and she didn't have shoes. She'd warm her feet by standing in cow shit.
No way.
Yeah, because their feet were freezing, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But I mean, like, yeah, totally. I felt like I was older than my years. Like, the people I was hanging out with were my grandparents' age. Yeah. My uncles and my aunties, and Mrs. Shanley next door. So, I mean, I loved it. But I also still, if I could just be really clear, I got to be a kid. I really did get to play. And anyone who knows me personally knows I'm a big kid still. Yeah. And one of the things I love to do when I'm not working is find things that I can do that is fun, like playing spacies or very competitive sports.
Yeah. That's the day. Like when you become an adult, a lot of people lose play. And like playfulness is just so, I think, for like mental health, like you need to have a hobby, an activity that you can tap into and just exercise that like playful muscle.
Plus, for the brain, it releases all those feel-good hormones, not just dopamine, but serotonin, and when you're doing it with buddies, people you love, that level of hauora, I mean, like it's magic. Yeah. That's all I know I have to do is get out and do something fun, and immediately, like even just talking about it, I've shifted from crying 5 minutes ago to now feeling joyful. Yeah.
So I guess, you're sort of raised in Whanganui, and then you just, I guess, sort of tapped into a lot of like sort of physical outlets around gymnastics. Do you say springboard diving?
Yeah.
Is that the ones into the pool?
Yeah.
That is crazy. Like how high would you
10 meters.
No way. How do you even get into that?
Yes way.
Margin for error.
Massive, it's massive. It's pretty massive. Well, crack up in Whanganui, and this is back in the late 80s, 90s. We only had outdoor pools, and I couldn't train during winter. And as I got better, I had to come up to Hamilton to Te Rapa pools and train with the New Zealand team. And we didn't have. It's called a bubble. So if you're trying a new dive and you splat, this bubble is this cushion of air on top of the water that comes up like a bubble, and it softens the splat. So our coach in Whanganui built one, for the outdoor pool, it was like a hose, like a garden hose down with a pipe that pumped, I don't know, some gas down to create the bubble that came up. Like it really made me appreciate what I had in Whanganui, and diving to me is something that was a natural, progression from gymnastics. I could do flips and I wasn't scared about that. It was just the water bit, and I was a swimmer, so I love the water.
So
it
would
was
that little
cool.
bubble water? Break the
surface.
Yeah.
Beyond the surface.
Break the surface.
Yeah, so it came up above the water and like, Google it. It's so trippy to tell people that, but this is back in the 80s and 90s, and now it's even like I could imagine even better with technology, you know. So you can basically land on your back from a 10-meter board and you're not going to get hurt.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Must just be like the mental barrier, eh? Even still, you'd be like, dude, if I jump off anything over 5 meters, I'm freaking out. I'm not doing it.
Kia ora, can I say that when I got to 15 and I was up on 10 meter, there was something in me. It was like, I can remember it. It was a switch that went, what the fuck are you doing, bro? This is really high. So I didn't want to dive anymore. I stopped diving because I don't know, it was, you know, as you get older, you start to have, you're more discerning, more cautious, and I just was like, nah, I'm out.
Fair enough.
Up until then, I was like, yeah, let's go. You know.
Yeah, you're the fear or like that survival part of your brain was like, what's going on, man?
Yeah,
we shouldn't be jumping off things this high.
Decisions, bro. You could break your neck.
Yeah. So you're also a like professional performer. So you like toured in like the Lion King as well. So doing was it dance and singing or just dance?
Well, there were 2 productions, and I speaking about being burnt out. I was in South Africa doing a show, singing, dancing, acting, to answer your question first of all. And the first time Lion King came around to Australia, I got cast as a dancer. And I was in South Africa, and I did my Achilles in. Now, how many signs do you need from the universe that you are burnt out? I went to the doctor because I was really tired, and I had like cold sores all over my mouth, a sty on my eye, and I was deaf in one ear.
Wow.
Like literally your body is saying to you, sit down and shut the fuck up and, you know, rest.
Hard out.
That's what the doctor said to me, and I was like, nah, I'm going to work. You know, that A-type personality that I built up from a young age.
Yep.
And I ripped my Achilles. So I couldn't go and do the first production of Lion King. And then in the second production, which came around another 10 years later, I'd given up dancing, and I was a singer in that show. Yeah.
Because I guess doing those sort of like plays and performances, they're like long hours rehearsing, very intense on your body. Did you rupture your Achilles like mid-show, or was it during?
Right at the end. Right at the end, and an old mate kicked a leg and felt this twang.
Apparently it kind of feels like you get whacked in the back of your leg.
Yes, bro. And then I went to walk, the curtains closed, I went to walk back out through the wings backstage, and I was like, oh, something's going on here. Walked home. Just hopped along, and then the next day I was like, oh, this is not good. Went to the doctor, and he was like, you've ripped your Achilles. Shit. Now, back in those days, this was in the early 90s, early 2000s, you had to have your leg in a cast, like old school casts, when you get a broken arm, for 12 weeks. So it literally sat me on my ass and made me really assess, consider, reflect what got you here, Jase. What got you here? And then once the cast came up, and that's when I considered trigger warning, taking my life, because I'm like, fuck, all I've known my whole life is physical. I've been physical my whole life, and now and the doctor said it's going to be like a year recovery, and I don't know if you'll be able to dance again. Which for someone who whole life was dancing at that time and physical.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, who am I?
Yeah.
If I'm not this dancer.
Yeah.
Did physio to rehab from that, and the physio said to me, you should try yoga. I know you like to move, so the cast was off now. And I went to a yoga class at Les Mills, and this lady, Mandy, who's a mate of mine now, was talking to the class, and I was like, old mate, like competitive as well, like, like, you know, like competing with this beautiful ethereal lady doing her yoga practice next to me, and the yoga instructor came up, put her hand on my shoulder, speaking to the room, but speaking to me. Sometimes you just don't need to try so hard.
Oh, did she say that to you?
She was saying it to me, but to the room,
Yeah,
with her hand on my shoulder, like directly to me, and I'm like, oh, to my knees. I was literally brought to my knees. I was in child's pose for the rest, and this started that yoga class started this real journey of healing for me. I started practicing yoga not for the physical, but for the way it made me slow down on my mat, become really present with my breath, find the healing properties of breath and breath work. Just me with my eyes closed on my mat, practicing, not competing with others or against others. And I started reading philosophies around yoga and decided I wanted to go on a journey of healing with meditation and mindfulness. That was what I call a pivotal moment in my life.
And there was the catalyst was also, I guess, that journey of having that setback of rupturing your Achilles. It resonates with what TJ Perenara said on the podcast.
I saw.
Yeah, when he broke his ankle and he couldn't play rugby anymore, he was like, my identity is TJ Perenara, the Hurricane, the All Black. Like, who am I without a rugby ball? You know what I mean? And I feel like it's such a common thought process that goes through your head when you have an injury and you actually have to slow down. It's like, who are you without this identity into this, you know, hobby or this career that really fuels who you feel like you are as a person?
Yeah.
So just circling back to, I guess, those feelings of hitting rock bottom when you were injured, you know, 12 weeks in the cast, having to really slow down and sort of reassess. When you were entering those feelings of, depression, suicidal ideation, like what were some of the early triggers that were coming up into your head as thoughts where you realized like this is actually, you know, this is not sustainable. This is not the right way to be thinking. Like what were those early sort of signs is what I'm trying to get at there.
Yeah, kia ora. Well, not getting out of bed, not wanting to get out of bed. Like, why would I even bother getting out of bed? What have I got to get out of bed for? And finding a job, like I hadn't worked in a job in an office. I started working in a call center that was, you know, I had some skills. Like I know that I'm bright. I can pick things up really quickly if I learn things, but I didn't have any skills. I didn't have I did 3.5 years of a law degree and a BA, but nothing to show for it because I dropped out to travel the world teaching for Les Mills. So lots of skills, but nothing on paper that I could do a CV and get a proper job for.
True.
So I worked in this call center that hired performers, amazing. And if you got a gig, they'd let you go just as long as you came back. So, and then you got free wine, which at that time when I was drinking was, oh, okay, you know, that sounds amazing. Yeah, really. And that was a real big wake up call. I was like, oh fuck. But to answer your question around like what's going on in my head, it's just that story again, I'm not worthy and why has this happened to me, and the blaming of everything else but not taking full accountability. I feel that yoga class was not only, that first yoga class where I was brought to my knees, was not only a opportunity for me to really stop and look in and go, what are you up to, Jase? Up to, bro? why do you have to push so hard? It's really where I started to understand that toxic fuel, that thing that has kept me going was that wanting to get outward validation, which is why I became excellent at things, you know, and that's not sustainable.
Toxic fuel, that's an interesting way to put it. Is that like the ego?
Totally. It's totally the ego. It's the ego that wanted dad to say, I love you and I'm proud of you. And that's where it's the ego that when I heard this lady I went to a private school, Whanganui Collegiate. I won a scholarship to there, and I remember hearing this lady not even talking to me, bro, talking to her son as I was walking past my koro, who was so out of place there. We had like sirs and lords from England's sons there, and me too. I just like we want to put someone in a place that where they already feel like they don't belong and they're unlovable and not worthy. And I heard that woman say this out loud, not to me, about me to her son. I just overheard. I don't even fucking remember who this woman is. She was saying he doesn't deserve to be here.
Really?
And so how does that, fuel
and her
this?
name was Karen.
She was definitely Karen. Karina, I think she was. And I was like, I'll fucking show you.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by toxic. It became toxic. It was like, I used to love people underestimating me. And it can even be a look, like walk into a place and someone can go like that, oh, you're like, and you can see in their head they're going, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
You're so out of place here. I'm like, fucking show you.
Yeah.
That becomes really toxic after a while. And that's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
A lot of holding yourself together when really you want to fall apart inside.
Yeah.
A lot of showing up when you just don't want to. And that has definitely shifted. Yeah, it's definitely shifted. Not so ego-driven, more kaupapa-driven, more about I'm really good at saying no. Part of that toxic fuel was saying yes all the time because I wanted to please people. I wanted to impress people.
Yeah.
I love saying no these days.
I feel like what you're saying with toxic fuel, I feel like I'm sort of in my toxic fuel era.
Oh, hey.
Because you're saying this, I'm like, yeah, I feel the same. Like, fuck those guys. You know what I mean? When I hear someone say I can't do it, I just like
fucking show
prove
you.
a point. Yeah, I will show you. So do you think there's also a good side to like toxic fuel, as you put it?
I'll just share it from my perspective. Toxic fuel came from a place of really feeling not worthy. That story of I'm not worthy, I don't deserve this. So that's what was driving me. The main driving force was to prove for outward validation.
True. That's
probably the difference. And so that works really well with someone who's a hard worker, who, I remember when someone, I was okay at performing at school, like I was in the choir and all that kind of stuff, but something you should know about me is that if I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it. If I say I'm going to do it, he mana tō te kupu, we say in Māori, there's mana in my words. When I say to you I'm going to show up at 10, bro, I'll be there at 10. If I also say I'm not, I'm definitely not going to be there. Do you know? Yeah. So I've always been a man of my word, and I really value that in my friends. I really value that in other people. If you say you're going to be there at that time, fucking be there at that time. 100%. I know that's simple, but to me that's... And that also goes with this toxic fuel thing, like if I say I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it.
What's the Māori word for that phrase? The
he mana, what do you mean?
The having mana in the word.
Oh, he mana tō te kupu.
I like that.
There's mana in your words. There's high value in your words. So if you say that, you better do it.
I like that. Yeah. I resonate with that as well. A pet peeve of mine is when someone says something, like I feel like if you put something out there, you've got to follow through with it. It can't just be words. And then because we've all got those people that we've met before that they say a lot, but sometimes never put it into action, you
Kia
know?
ora, yes.
And then, yeah, you're right. Their words can sometimes like lose its meaning and significance because you're like, okay, I've heard that before. Don't tell me, show me.
Thank you. Actions. Be the thing. I say that to my kaimahi, to my the people who work in our kaupapa Hauora Aotearoa. Do you know what? Walk the talk. Ne? Take care of yourself. On Monday mornings, instead of having a staff meeting, an example, we have practices, wellbeing practices. So we go around the roster system, and one by one we teach a wellbeing practice to start off our week, because we're about to go and share wellbeing with the rangatahi. Makes sense? So I want our team to walk the talk. As soon as you walk in, the highest praise one time walking to a school, never been to that school before, is when we walked in. Yes, we had our uniforms on, but it was cold and we had our jackets, so we could have just been randoms walking in. And the guy that was meeting us, he was like, you must be, emphasizing, must be the Hauora Aotearoa team. Here to speak about Hauora. I was like, oh, what made you see that? He goes, well, look at you. Meaning we were walking the talk.
Yeah.
There's mana in that too. And then my mentor said to me, my karaua said to me, if you are walking the talk, Jase, then when you talk, your words are going to have so much more power. And it'll be more cutting, because already you've walked in, looking like someone who is well, and then you speak about well-being. It's nothing worse than saying, I remember going to a wellbeing, and nothing against this brother, but there was this bro who was like really overweight, talking about well-being. To look at him, he was really unwell. So there was no power, or weight, or gravitas in his words. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100% it does. Yeah. It's like having I don't know, you don't want your, I think that's completely valid, to be honest. It's the significance that you've got to follow through with the actions. If you've got to preach about something, you've got to live by it too.
Kia ora.
Totally agree. So you ended up founding Awhi Yoga, I guess, after this sort of injury and your entry into yoga and like mindfulness. And then how long after that did you found, was it M3 mindfulness? Is that around 2018? So yeah, speak to us a little bit around like the inspiration for setting up all of your work that has happened across like ECE, secondary schools,
primary schools.
Primary schools.
Kia ora.
How did that come about though?
Well, back to earlier around my little bro passing away, it was that. And it was when I asked my youngest of his kids, how are you, my darling? And she said, I'm not good, uncle. I don't want to be here. I want to be with dad. That's heartbreaking to hear your 12-year-old at the time niece say that she wanted to take her life. And she wasn't sleeping. And it really dawned on me that I'd been sharing these tools that I'd used to help navigate my way through my childhood mamai and my hatred towards my dad. With adults at my yoga studio, I was sharing breath and movement and all that kind of stuff with, and in a studio, yoga studio, where quite privileged people were coming, do you see, but not sharing those same tools with my own. And so M3 came about because of my niece, straight up. She and all of the young people are my very reason why I keep saying the why has not changed, even though the name of our kaupapa has changed. And I took to share about her. I love this story. She learnt the breath practice that I gave her to help her to go to sleep, because every time she closed her eyes, she saw her dad and started sleeping. Shared that practice with her siblings. That year, she was the top of her class. Last year, she was head girl. And I suppose that is really the whainga, the goal of our kaupapa, is to take a young person from barely surviving, teaching them some wellbeing tools, some hauora tools, so that they can not only survive, but in that particular instance, thrive near. And yeah, I feel that's the most meaningful thing about our mahi, is really seeing these kids who teachers sometimes, or even tumuaki principals, have kind of given up on because there's too much work, they're too hard. Actually surprise the tumuaki and the teachers and go, oh, I didn't realise that Isaiah could do that. Oh, I didn't realise that Awenia was a natural leader. I'm like, because fuck, you don't give her the chance.
Yeah.
You've never given her the opportunity, and you've never seen her in that light. You just see her as the kid who's late, and if you were to ask her why she was late, you'd know and understand. She's the oldest of 6 kids. Her mum and dad are working double shifts just to pay for Kai to be put on the table. She has to get her younger siblings up, feed them, and walk them to school. That's why she's late.
Yeah, yeah.
I know.
Really liked what you put in your TED talk as well. And if you're listening or watching, we'll chuck a link in the description when you're listening, because it's a fucking great TED talk, bro.
Thank you.
But something you said there really sort of stood out to me. It was like, every day we spend 2 minutes a day on our dental hygiene, brushing our teeth. What if we just put like focus 2 minutes of our day around mental well-being?
Health.
Yeah, mental health.
Aye.
It's just a good way to shape it. It's
so simple though, and gobsmacking. You know, to me, I feel like 2 minutes is you can afford 2 minutes in your day.
Yeah. And
incrementally over, I think that even if for people who go, I'm too busy, I'm like, you got 2 minutes, bro. You know, that 2 minutes that you spent on social media, we were just talking about that before, right? You could be doing on just taking some breaths, or, you know, or just being quiet and sitting, closing your eyes for a sec.
Yeah.
You know?
What do you think most people in New Zealand sort of get wrong about young people and the sort of state of mental health in New Zealand? Big question.
He patai nui. Yeah, huge question. I would say we have such a let's go culture, hustle culture, that we don't take the time to stop and really ask and listen and hear the answer to, how are you? I get so many times in our kaupapa when we go into schools and we do everything through our Māori lens, so we sit in a circle. So already it's different from the classroom. So that each kid, even the ones who are like hoodie on and cap over their eyes and, you know, headphones on, are seen. Because that's easy for them to, if your belief is I'm invisible, you're going to make yourself invisible. You're going to sit at the back of the class and no one sees you. And our kaupapa, even though it might feel a little bit more exposing, we see you. I see you over there. You don't have to answer any questions. You don't have to talk, but I see you. I've had so many kids after our first session at schools come up and go, Matua, thank you so much for asking how I am. No one asked me how I am. That kid that I was telling you about that's late to school, if she was asked, how are you? She'd probably say, oh, I'm feeling a bit, you know, like if she was honest about how she was feeling. And this is how we got to find out what was going on for her and why she was late. It's because we asked her.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the start of how we can improve. Take the time to listen to our rangatahi, to our tamariki. Take the time to listen to them and teach them to answer honestly.
It's and it's tough, because like no one has the answer, like especially around why like statistics around youth suicide are just so appalling in Aotearoa. It's like what are all of those pieces in the system that are like making it okay for our rangatahi to feel like
That's
they
the way. That's the option.
Yeah, that's the option. The option is to not have a future. And like, yeah, from someone that's also, I know you have as well, I think as you grow older, everybody that you know, like I've never come across anyone that hasn't been impacted by suicide in some way. And yeah, is it like what is it about the circumstances in New Zealand that young people are feeling like they don't have a future here? Is it like a mentality thing? Is it like a spiritual thing? Is it like a systemic thing? Like,
it's a systemic thing, brother. What I see in schools is that, and then this particular government has an emphasis on literacy, near numeracy.
Mm-hmm.
Teach our kids before you even teach them that. Teach our kids to know and understand how they feel, why they feel a certain way, and that it's okay and human to feel down or sad or angry or all of those emotions. Teach them social and emotional learning at school so they have some tools to be able to navigate their way through shit, so it doesn't escalate to, my only option is taking my life. There's no social and emotional learning out there. Teachers have to do PLDs with me to learn social and emotional learning for themselves and then for their kids. Like at Teachers College, they're not taught how to take care of themselves. I wonder if you know that in 2022, nearly 6,000 teachers left because of burnout. They were burnt out because they're dealing with more kids coming to school, not being able to deal with their emotions, especially after COVID, right? And kids were like, I loved it at home and now I'm at school. Crazy times, wild. And the teachers didn't have the tools to be able to deal with them. I heard one teacher at one school that we were working at, where M3 Mindfulness was at that time, who said, I just gave up and went home. I was like, I'm leaving. The kids walked out of her classroom and went home because she didn't have any tools to be able to, mitigate what was going on. So it's not taught at Teachers College. No. There's got to be a system change. They learn at Teachers College how to plan a class, how to teach maths, how to teach all those subjects, Nothing about how to take care of themselves, so they're not leaving their jobs in droves, 6,000 in 2022, and learning some tools to be able to mitigate what's going on with the kids, the behaviour that's going on with their kids. Simple.
It's probably, I'm no primary school teacher or a secondary school teacher, but I'm sure, depending on what school you're at, probably like, it'd be good if a teacher out there could verify, but like I could imagine like 50 to 60% of your work is more so around like managing relationships with students, those sort of like interpersonal skills, being like a mentor, being a coach, guiding them, and the 40% is probably like direct teaching. Like so much of it.
Even less.
Yeah, even less.
20% is teaching. Because like going back to that walking the talk thing, when the kids get to see us as a team, when we walk in, we always do it in a team, whether it's 2 or 3 facilitators at a time. I'm less in schools, but I've taught our facilitators to do this, is that they are, they're practicing, like I said, what they preach. So even if the kids are doing something, they're being really present. They're not on their phones scrolling in the background while the kids are doing bookwork or something. And it's more about, like a lot of our kaupapa is playing games. Because also what I geek out about this, what I learned about the brain and brain development is a lot of our kids who have had trauma, and they call it ACEs, which is stuff that's, there's a list of things that have happened to you when you were young, that have impacted your ability to be able to even survive. So some of those kids, especially the ones with the hoodie on, the hat on, the headphones on, they're protecting themselves because home life is really, really tough. So they're not even ready to learn. It's easy for the teacher when they're teaching 25 kids to go, get out. You're disengaged. So what we teach in our kaupapa is we literally get the kids ready to learn to a space and place where they're like, instead of like this, closed down, brain offline, they're leaning forward and ready to learn, brain online again. It's a Māori model that we use, but you can see the difference. And that's seen in, like at the end of our kaupapa, we go down to, it's my favourite, we go down to early childhood centres. In the rangatahi, the young people teach what they've learnt to the babies.
That's cool. That's special.
Which is the last piece of learning. The last piece of learning to really, really consolidate what you've learnt, you teach it on. And that's when we see those kids. The kid who was like this, standing up, leading a breath practice.
That's cool.
With the babies, you know, or
cool.
teaching a game. So yeah, we work with the young people to get them ready to learn. And then obviously in the classroom, in other classes, their academic performance goes up. They're more engaged. They're showing up to class. Their attendance is better. Behavioural issues are less. Yeah, it's a systemic change. Go back to your question before. We need to change the system.
What are those like key, like what are you hearing from young people at the moment around like why they're feeling so shit? A lot of them who are struggling, like does it root down to like family stuff? Is it like a lack of positive role models? Is it not exercising? Like what are those drivers that you're seeing out there at the moment, Jase?
Because we work with Māori Pasifika poverty. We work in desolate areas, so poverty is huge. It's huge. And it's simple, basic needs like kai. We used to, because when we were in a circle at the beginning of our kaupapa, we asked kids, how are you? Yeah, and the two answers we get are tired and hungry.
True.
Heartbreaking. So we mitigate the hunger by always bringing kai. Kai is going to give you the fuel, so you're not tired. That and social media has a big part to play in the anxiety that I'm seeing with these kids. They're seeing on TikTok, oh, that person's really beautiful, oh, and I'm not beautiful, that comparison, and there's that downward spiral of thinking. Yeah, there's a really, I forget who the author is now off the top of my head, you might know, bro, but it's about anxiety in our people, in our young people. It's growing exponentially. And it can be in friend groups, like there's lots of research being done that when you hang out with people who are anxious, obviously that's going to impact the anxiety of the rōpū as well. Unless you've got someone who's self-aware within that group and can break that cycle.
Yeah. I think social media has got a massive role in it, eh? And I actually really like what had Melinda McLean on the podcast, who's the CEO of Outward Bound, and she's a part of that, like banning social media for under 16-year-olds.
Kia ora.
And
I agree.
I agree as well. It's funny, because like my daughter came home from school, who's 10, and she was like, "Dad, the government want to ban Snapchat for young people." I was like, yeah,
yes.
mean. It's funny because like all of her pupils, they're like, year 5, they're all talking about it. They're like, this is so unfair. The adults are taking away what we love. But I'm like, I had a real, it was cool. It was like the first conversation that me and my daughter have had about government policy.
Wow.
And like we actually debated it together. Like she had her points to get across to me. I had my point to get across.
Nice.
I don't think I changed her mind.
Nice.
But it was I think it's so needed because that correlation, right, between the uptick, I think, in poor mental health, anxiety for young people, even like loneliness, toxic relationships too. Yeah. I think a lot of that, correlation doesn't equal causation, but I think a lot of that can be directly linked to the accessibility of Instagram, TikTok, social media, and that comparison piece that you spoke about. You can be in a happy, healthy relationship, and then you see someone on your Instagram that's, I don't know, it's got a better figure than your significant other, or doing more exciting things, and then people fall into that trap of being like, I want that instead of what I have now.
Yeah, it's a poison, comparing what you currently have to what other people, especially our kids that we work with, in those lower decile areas. That I remember, like the kicks that I had, my shoes I was wearing, they were like, oh, matua, are those real? Some of the kids have similar ones, but they're not. Yep. Do you know what I mean? Yep. And I said, oh, no. I just said, I said that because I didn't want to have this conversation that, oh, how did you get... And in retrospect, I should have said, actually, yes, they are, and explained perhaps what I did to be able to get there as a, I suppose, coaching point, or it's tricky. Like can I just say that being a young person now compared to, and this is a very, very long time ago, me being a young kid is so much more complicated. There's so many more things that our kids are being just bombarded with. Even the media. Whilst I say that, can I also say that because of that, young people, especially A-type young people, are more likely to do stuff about it. Like back in the day, for example, our young people would go, oh, that's really shit, and just go, oh, well, that's really shit. Whereas now, people are mobilized to go and do something about the environment. Young people, they've got councils of young people who are on the advisory board for the Ministry of Conservation, to try and make sure that our environment is taken care of. They're much more activists, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. What do you think a school system would look like if it truly prioritized health and well-being?
Like a kura kaupapa.
Yeah, true.
Straight up. A kura kaupapa.
What do they do that is different, I guess, to like the mainstream education schools?
Well, first of all, get outside. Lots of stuff is done outside. That there is a deeper appreciation for our environment. Starting from a young age at kohanga, they're always outside playing. Like early childhood in mainstream, amazing. They got it nailed. But as the kids get older into primary school, intermediate, and then in secondary school, there's less whanaungatanga. You might have seen this with your daughter. Kids love each other when they're at early childhood. Then they don't see each other so much at primary. At intermediate, same. At secondary school, they're off in their different subject groups. Yeah. And so there's less whanaungatanga. There's less connection to your mates.
True.
So it's got to impact your well-being. Whereas at kura kaupapa, you move as a unit all the way through your years. And like that appreciation of rangi, of papa, of the taiao, of the ngahere, of the moana, going down to the moana, doing kariki, like all of that. Appreciation of our atua, appreciation of matariki, what matariki, this 9 whitu stand for, is really holistic. And keeps us as Māori more grounded and connected. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it.
That's a good point, eh? It's I had this moment with my mum yesterday because my mum, my siblings are the same age as my daughter, so my little brother is 2 days older than my daughter, which is quite special, and I've got a few more like younger siblings as well, and me and my mum had this cool moment yesterday. We were watching my daughter and my two siblings who are Kyla's age, and they were just playing on the monkey bars in my mum's place.
Sure.
And I was like, because they're 10 now, and I was like, man, I hope they never lose like just playing with each other, you know what I mean? Just like having fun, being kids, hanging on the monkey bars. And I was like, when you go into high school, that's when you lose, like we were talking earlier, you lose that sense of play.
Aye.
You just go into these
little
corporate cubicles almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where little cliques start.
Yeah.
As well. You know, or the cool club over here, and or the clubs, the different types of clubs, and then you're like more cliquey.
Yeah, 100%. I guess, bro, Jason, like, what motivates you to keep showing up? Because I can imagine operating in this space, and you'll be privy to like many very delicate conversations, and it must be hard to keep showing up at times, especially because you're like holding, I guess, a lot of the like pain that you'll be hearing from young people, whether that's like suicidal ideation or whatever they're going through. So like, what keeps you pushing through? Because I can imagine that would also take a toll on yourself.
Yeah.
At times.
Yeah, kia ora. It does. Let's first of all be really honest about that. It does take a toll, and it has at times got really tough for me, because I'll hear something from a kid that really impacts me, I have my own practices to be able to, we call it tuku, to send it off. I'll go to the moana, I'll jump in the sea if it's in the summer, or I'll go for walking as my way of like just letting that shit go and then dropping that because it's not mine to hold.
Yep.
What keeps me going? What keeps me going is, I call it our mokopuna. Mokopuna can just be the kupu for young people who are our next generation. Coming back to the beginning of our kōrero really, bro, was like what I didn't have, I want them to have.
Yeah.
You know, it was really personal for me when it started with my niece, but now it's all young people. I want them to have what I didn't have, straight up. And so those tough days, like I had a couple probably 2 weeks ago where I was like, oh, I don't think I can do this. And then I saw this message from a young person on my Instagram. Now, I normally don't let young people on my Instagram, but this one is an ambassador and someone also who shows up as like she's on the advisory council for the Young People's Development, Ministry of Young People's Development, MYD, Youth Development, that one. And, you know, has to show up like she's 16, like really like a gun. But she was really low, and it made me, that put things into perspective for me. I'm like, oh, well, first of all, I'm going to rest. That I know I'm going to do that in the weekend, but when I heard that even she, who is looked up to by so many of her peers, is having a hard day, that first of all, it's normal, and I'm not a superhero, and to keep showing up because it's about our young ones.
That's some pretty good inspiration, eh? hard to wake up and be like, oh, don't know if I want to. Yeah. It's pretty engaging mahi, bro, and just hat goes off to what you're doing at Hauora Aotearoa. We'll definitely chuck a link in the description if people want to check out your mahi and support as well.
Thank you, bro.
We have some quick fire questions.
Yeah.
And we'll finish with a quote. But before we wrap up, where can people keep in touch with you and your mahi?
Kia ora. On all of our websites and social media platforms as well, hauoraaotearoa.com. Super simple.
Man. And just want to say, bro, appreciate the kōrero today. It's been awesome.
Tēnā koe.
So stoked we could do this, and the topic of like mental health is something real close to me as well. So love seeing all of the soldiers out there, boots on the ground, doing the mahi.
Kia ora.
New Zealand's a better place because there's, leaders in the space like you, Sir John Kirwan, Mike King. We need more advocates in that space.
Thank you, brother.
So Jase, what brings you true happiness?
Hearing laughter.
What is the meaning of life?
Love, aroha.
Advice you wish you knew about when you were younger?
Laugh more, play more.
What does legacy mean to you?
Fuck.
You're good, bro.
Making sure that my nieces and nephews are still here for their kids.
If you could change one thing in New Zealand, what would this be?
More support for mental health, for our young ones especially.
And what do you believe is the main thing that is holding back young people in New Zealand?
People not stopping to listen to them. And really truly listening to them and what they have to say.
Thank you, bro, for opening up so much. I think hopefully this conversation and this episode can help some other people out there as well. I love the topics that we sort of dove into as well. So appreciate you wearing your heart on your sleeve and also sharing stuff which brings up some like raw thoughts and emotions for you. Because I think that's, what these platforms are here to do. So, thank you, bro.
Tēnā rā waitu koe, brother.
We'll finish with this quote. This is from entrepreneur and investor Paul Graham, and it's on fooling yourself. If you're trying to choose between two theories or options, and one gives you an excuse for being lazy, the other one is probably right. Cheers, bro. Oh, also, as a part of our sponsorship from Whanganui Road, you also get a pair of sunglasses.
No way! I was looking at them going, bro, those look mean. Oh, thank you.
No, all good. Thank you, team. Bye.